Miss Universe podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Miss Universe podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Miss Universe podcast.
Hello and welcome to Emma's podcast. In today's podcast, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I was just looking at, I don't know. Well, I do know, but I love Suits. Had nothing to do with the MM at all. It's the other cast, and I love the most, especially Donna. And I just saw a little clip of Donna having a Donna moment. So, being sassy, being a smart aleck, a go-getter, self-starters, this is what we should be doing actually, unless you decide not to and want to be on the back seat, which, you know what, it's everybody own taste on this one. No judgment here, but I found it fascinating. I was talking yesterday about past event that got brought together and see how the universe works, because it's luck, it's being at the right place at the right time, and it's a discipline to have to keep ourselves really moving up towards our goals. Again, goals can change and evolve as well. If you start a project or you start a business, you might want to continue to evolve, because your business is going to want to evolve. It doesn't matter if it's a multi-million or billion-dollar company, or you just a startup. It is going to evolve. Businesses evolve, change, mature. That's the cycle from the beginning to the inception, to the delivery, to the marketing, to go on to the market, and where you have your product. Some product can last forever. Okay, WD-40, an example. Others are going to be there for a season or a time, until you can go back to the drawing board, ask the voice of the customer, your VOC, what they think about the product, what do they want as an add-on, or what are the pain point for them, what are the win, what are the pain point, and work on the pain point and modify or do a spin-off of your product. I have seen product that have been evolving dramatically when you involve feedback from your customers. And you have to put yourself in the shoes of the customers, which I think is one of the hardest things to do for some business owners and people who do the concept, because they don't put their shoes into their customers and understand that your product in and out, or you should. Problem is people don't know your product. So people who are familiarized with your product, great, but people who are unfamiliarized with your product, how do you reach out to them? It's the same when you're working in, people don't like processes. Why do I have to document what I'm doing? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if you win at the lottery tomorrow morning after breakfast, then what we're going to need is to have the documentation to be able to do the job if you're not there anymore, if you're on vacation, if you're sick, if you're on maternity leave or paternity leave. Wherever you are, whatever you're going to do, or if you're not available, somebody has to be able to pick up after you. This is documentation, and I mentioned that to clients and past clients, even startup, document. Okay, it's not to become a bureaucrat, it's to keep trace of it. How many times have you guys experienced that somebody left the company, quit, or went on vacation, and nobody were capable to do what they were able to do, so you scrambled to try to figure it out how it works? Very difficult, extremely stressful. documentation should be done in a way that you pick up anyone from the street and should be able to go behind the computer and start to do the work with a minimum question, not the reverse. So that's also is a challenge when you do documentation and processes and explaining how things flow, because it's like I like IKEA. IKEA, I think, is the best thing ever. Love to share a story. I'm going to share another one. Remember with the little one, who's for people who don't know who the little one is, go back into some of my previous episodes, and you will know who she is. She is my sister, and so the little one and I ended up going to assemble. It was a very nice desk actually, and it was the old way when you get that rolling door. Very nice, super cool, super simple. Mommy dearest saw it at IKEA. We went to IKEA, and IKEA what became like the holy grail over there. We got a bunch of stuff that were not too expensive. Very nice, super simple, lean, and that was one of them. So we had a great time, quote unquote. It was a Saturday afternoon, a Saturday, and I was thinking, well, a couple of hours would be enough. No, we spent the entire day because, as a sister, we were not in a hurry. I'm going to say that to you. I remember that day. We were not in a hurry either. But we looked at the explanation. The explanation were not translated in French. It was Swedish, and it was old pictures. So that took some time. At the end of the day, we had, I think, some extra pieces because I was laughing. I was talking to my uncle, and I was just said to him, I said, yeah, that reminds me when you explained to me the story when you built some, or assembled, I should said, a cabinet or whatever, and he has some extra pieces. He didn't know where that was coming from. And I was just like, this is not good. And I'm not talking about, the hardware. I'm talking the actually wood. And I'm like, I started to laugh. I'm like, okay, I will never ask you to build something or to assemble something with me because we never know. We're going to end up with more extra pieces than it's supposed to be. But it took us the entire day. Why? Because we were looking at the pictures, and I'm like, oh boy, it is not going to look good after 5 minutes. But we did it. We made it. We had a good laugh. I must say that there was just a good one. But it's like, make your instruction, make your processes, make the job description and how the functionality works so the people know exactly what you're supposed to do. You could have experience in procurement, you could have in marketing, you could have everywhere. But when you come to a specific company, they do their own thing on their own. So there's always going to be variation on how they do things. Now, coming with an open mind is great, but if you don't know where everything is, and I think this was the hardest part for everything. Even to give you a little example, when you do Power BI, so Power BI is an application, a software that goes on the top of SAP and other actually softwares, and that basically gather information. However, if you don't know where the tables are, that can be a challenge. And I worked on some of the Power BI, and I did some of the reporting and stuff like that, and dashboard, blah, blah, blah. Problem with the Power BI, again, if you don't know where the tables are, then good luck with that. Even though you know what you need to gather, but the name of the tables and everything where it is, that can be challenging. So understand that it doesn't matter if you have a startup or you have a very well-oiled machine that is the business. You need to look at the documentation, and it needs to be updated. It should be updated every 6 months. But generally, you do that once a year as well, because with time constraint and everything moving and blah, 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 you might not have the time. But at least get it consistent. Having somebody else's as a backup, because a lot of people don't think about it. And I've been a lot of people backups, and I did it in purpose, actually. It was to continue to understand how the company function. Yes, I have learned a lot of things because I wanted to know, and I was curious to know what is entailed and how the job that I'm looking at right now from that person impacts the company as well. So I understood better how things are working and how it impact everybody as well, because people don't realize when you're behind your computer at home or at work, it doesn't matter where you are, you don't understand how you impact everybody else's. If maybe a project is not delivered on time, if you don't provide the right reporting to somebody that needs it right now because they need to make critical decisions that will impact the company. And I talked about power because I have seen a lot and I've shared stories about people who thought that if I keep information, I get power. The problem is you're not getting the power. What you're doing is shooting somebody else in the foot. But by doing this to that person, you're actually damaging the company more than that person. And you can find any excuses in the world, not responding to their email, giving them wrong information, or make them look bad. And I shared a story that happened to me when I was supposed to help somebody, and she gave me half of the information, so she would not release that report for me to do temporarily to help her, which was ridiculous because she was complaining she was swamped and she needed help. And she made me look like a ding dong at that time. And I did not appreciate it, to be honest with you, because I saw her coming and I had to explain to her very nicely and gently without bruising her and make her understand I was here to help you. I was asked to do it. I don't want your job. I got my job over there and I'm already extra busy, but I'm going to try to help you. And it's human nature at some level when the ego and the insecurity is there that people will act this way. Now, when you do this, sooner or later you're going to be discovered as well, because what you do to that person will show sooner or later. Truth always prevails. When you do things like that, truth always prevails sooner or later, which is not a good thing. So think about, am I holding this? What is the intention? Because I don't want that person to succeed, because I'm lost and I need help, or I'm not competent enough to do that job. I have seen people on the opposite side of the spectrum, from somebody insecure to somebody who had no idea how to run projects. And everything she touched became a nightmare. And I got engulfed in there, but I made sure that I had my boss in every single meetings because I knew how she functioned. And she tried once or twice to throw me under the bus and she could not. Ironically, a year later, it was review time, and somebody sent her the thing. I would have never sent it to her, but sent it to her, and she rehashed a fake story that happened 2 years prior to that. It had nothing to do with in her attempt. So I recognize, when they give it to you, it's like, oh, I know who it is. Yeah, that would be Radhika right there. Oh, that would be this, that would be that. And I was laughing, and I'm like, really? A 2-year-old story that had nothing to do, and I had witnesses? How sad is that? But this is the kind of situation you see in people that, they're monkey, they're circus, but the power, people who cannot do their job will do this at all time. People who are insecure will do this at all time. You assume I have the power, so I'm going to distill information. Is not a win-win situation. It's detrimental to everyone. And that breaks the trust to want to work with those individuals, because I would never work. I didn't work with them afterwards, but I would not want to work with them because you have to watch your back. Working in harmony is being able to accept where we are, the level where we are, and instead than trying to throw everybody else's under the bus, is trying to figure it out, how can I make it better for myself so I can help better. And yes, you could have any diploma you want, a PhD, because the people I'm talking, one of them had a PhD. Problem is, and that's, Kevin Trudeau said that, people who are memorizing everything, and this is what they do at school. You memorize, you pass your PhD because you have memorized everything. Good for you. But we don't need this. If you want a memory, that's fine. But if you want to lead projects, you need to be able to handle more than what you got in your head. You need to have the vision. You need to have the time. You need to, in the time of the milestone, you need to be able to anticipate issues that will come along the way. You need to adapt and become flexible when things are not going the right way either, and adjust. And a lot of people at the time of, because of pressure, because of stress, because everybody, I want it, and I want it, I want it, I want it, and they get and picked up that energy of fear, that can throw them off the curbs. And think about a moment for you when you picked up that energy and that throw you off the game. I remember when I was working for that bio company, and I end up in a hot seat, and it was always a hot seat actually, not because I created it, but because people were calling, because I was the wizard and the genius behind solving every problem around the block and make things running smoother. That's what I became. I was already a problem solver, and I was somebody who will anticipate the moves. I anticipated everything, which was very interesting. Reading and anticipating and moving and being proactive as getting things done. And I get called one day out of the blue, and she was in total panic. And I think I talked to that story a few times, but it was very interesting because she wanted to give up. She had a freaking meltdown at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, great, this is exactly what I need at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm calm. I'm like, okay, under the storm, I'm like, okay, well, let's remove the emotion, Emma, and let's see in the analytic side of it. Meaning, I'm going to be neutral, and I'm going to start to see what needs to be done, the where, the how, blah blah blah, going through that phase, which I did. So she hung up. Somebody on the other side of the cube said, I would not want your job, Emma. I was laughing. I'm like, oh, that's nothing. I said, that's worse. There is worse than that. I said, I just can handle more hot potatoes. Not a big deal. Well, I talked to, because there was a contract that needed to be signed before they could start that project. Otherwise, they couldn't do it. And they had the date set. They had everybody ready for the following week. It was just like 3 days before, 3 days because I'm not counting the weekends before it started, basically. So you're on a Wednesday. So I talked to my contact in a compliance department where she wasn't happy, and I'm like, well, don't yell at me. I said, I will pass on to those guys. I said, you need to give them trainings. You need to do something about that. And we got it going, got it signed, and basically in a can by Friday. But I had that young girl talking to me, and a very sweet person. But I had her that evening talking to me in tears, and I'm like, honey, we're fine. I said, when Emma said it's time to run for the hills, it's time to run for the hills. I said, it's not time right now. It's going to be done. It will be signed. And it was signed on Friday. However, those people, unfortunately, were not educated enough to, and when I said educated, because they needed to know that within the compliance, you had to do things ahead. And they had no discipline. Meaning, oh, we're going to do this today, we're going to do this tomorrow, but they did not plan things. And you should be planning, especially when you do medical things, and that goes to USDA, FDA, and everything else. So, but it was very interesting to work with people who were disorganized, and some who had meltdown, and some who were lied to your faces, and just like, okay, what's next? I'm like, this is very interesting. I'm like, I can read you people. Don't worry. I should have had a T-shirt that I can read you people, but I never did. I should have. That would have been awesome. So, but think about, moment where you contributed and moment when you decided to shoot somebody on their foot because you think you could cut the grass under their feet, and it backfired because you're impacting more the business than you're impacting that person. You can make their life miserable if you wanted to, but at the end of the day, you need to understand how much you're impacting the company when you're withholding information, when you're not doing your job properly. And if you can't, then reach out for help. There is no shame to ask for help. Seriously, people will be more willing to help you and respect you for that than you playing games of lying and blaming everybody else's. I've seen it too many times. I've witnessed it too many times. I even had somebody I had many years ago, someone I was dating, and he was always on weekends. So our weekends were always screwed up because he always had to go back to work to fix something. And it wasn't like a 15-minute fixing. And on the top of it, he had to justify what happened, how, why, and why not. Why? Because the people who did something wrong were always blaming everybody else's, which is always unbelievable. So he had to spend his time proving it. No, it is not how it happens. So, all my love, guys, and I will take it to you later. Bye now.
Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe Podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe Podcast. Emma's Universe Podcast.